Everywhere Woman is dedicated to getting the women back to work or working for the first time. So we want to welcome back to the show, Sheryl Bender.
Thank you so much.
So you were one of the first Everywhere Woman guests, one of our favorites.
Thank you.
And tell us a little bit about how you know the show and where you're coming from.
Well, I was introduced to Everywhere Woman by another of your hosts, Stacy Lewis. Stacy and I actually work together in human resources, and she's been a mentor to me, and I've learned quite a bit under her leadership. So when she joined the show, and given everything I've learned, she wanted to give me the opportunity to come and share what it is that I know, because in a position doing recruiting like I do, it seems like I've seen it all, and I recognize that there's quite a bit that people, trying to get into the workforce don't know, and I've made it my mission to share that.
So what about women entering work for the first time? Whether they haven't gone to work or coming right from college, how do we prepare ourselves for that?
Well, you know what? The first thing you need to do, you have to have a plan. It's important. You don't just set out and, take the shotgun approach when you're looking for a job.
Mm-hmm. What's the shotgun approach?
The shotgun approach is, shooting out a resume to any and everything. It's like, if it's a job, I'll take it. Okay, that's something you don't want to do.
Let's not be desperate.
Definitely.
Right. I think it's good to really concentrate on what you're good at, what you're really, focused on, what you enjoy doing, because you're going to do it for a long time.
But how do you find it? How do you find those jobs then? That,
That
if you're not
focus.
looking on Monster, you're not looking in the newspaper, if
Well,
anyone reads those
and
anymore.
And you know what? Monster's not going to tell you what your focus is, and Monster can't tell you where your strengths are.
So how do you find them?
Well, you know what? Especially if you're coming out of school, visit your career center, because they have career counselors. They can do skills assessments, and they can kind of pinpoint where your strengths are, so that you can then start to look for an industry that has jobs that kind of, maximize those strengths. It helps you to set the direction, that your career trajectory is going to take.
And I think too, once you're in school, internships are a great thing.
I was going to say that.
Right. They really make a difference.
But what about the people who don't have, aren't college educated, and they're looking for that job?
Well, you know what? Those, college isn't for everybody, but most everybody, unless you're independently wealthy, does need to get a job. So, availing yourself of some sort of training, volunteer work is actually a really, really good start to getting work experience.
Test it for free, see if you like it, and then you can make money on it.
Exactly.
And volunteer work, you can really do well, because someone will notice the work you're doing, the good work you're doing, and say, would you like to come to work with us?
So what about
so I think
women
that
who
makes
are
a big difference.
Rejoining the workforce. Michelle might be planning on rejoining after her pregnancy.
Yeah.
How do these women find their focus in recentering their careers?
Well, I think once again, it's important to have a plan, and especially if you've been out of the workforce for a while, it's very important to do some advanced planning. Don't just decide one day, wake up and say, you know what, time to look for a job. If you've spent, a year, 2 years, the preschool years, out, working from home, or being a stay-at-home mom, then, it's best to, start looking in advance.
Where should we look? I mean, where should women be looking to find these jobs?
For me, I stayed at home with my daughter for a couple of years before I went back to work, and I just had to keep myself relevant in the workforce. I couldn't just be, I was a stay-at-home mom for the last 2 years, so I did it by, my passion is social media, writing, so I kept myself relevant by blogging, by becoming a social media expert, and then by making, reaching accomplishments through that. When I went out to look for a job, it was a lot easier, because they were just they looked at my website and said, "Wow, you did all this the last 2 years. You got this many followers. You obviously know how to navigate."
But the more people that you contact, and the more people that you connect with, the better off you're going to be trying to find a job.
But what about
and
those
getting
women,
a job?
What about those women who maybe have done, a project here or there, and how do you bring it all together? How do you sell yourself, really? Because that's what most people go into it and they think, well, I don't know, I'm not on my trajectory right now, but I want to get that dream job. How do they sell themselves?
You know what? I've been that person, and I've been the person who actually had kind of a shotgun approach. And I would say networking is key. Whether it's going to conferences, aligning yourself with professional organizations, anything you can do to get yourself in connection with people who are in the industry that you're trying to work in, that's going to be key. Because especially if your trajectory hasn't necessarily followed a straight path, the best, your resume is not going to tell the story for you, but as soon as you get a face-to-face interaction with somebody, they're going to be able to see what kind of skills you have
Right, and I think
right off the bat.
in person, you're your best resume.
But what about these job fairs? Do they really work?
You know what? Yes and no. I think that for just by virtue of connecting with employers, you become more familiar of the players in the industry
And what they might be looking for.
Absolutely. And you can talk directly to a recruiter, because even if they don't necessarily have the right job for you then and there, at a job fair, they're going to be recruiting for what they have right then.
What do you bring to a job fair? Like the resume, first and foremost. How do you put that on a page?
You know what? Have your resume, but they might have an online submission system, so have them handy if they're accepting them, but they might not be. So I would say have your elevator pitch ready.
What is an elevator pitch?
Your elevator pitch is your 30-second me. It's you summed up in a nutshell. It's what you would say if you managed to catch the CEO of your company in an elevator, and what you would tell him to leave a lasting impression. Him or her, excuse me, to leave a lasting impression.
What's your 1 minute or your 30-second? I don't know what I would say. I mean,
I think it's good for all of us to practice that. That's a great thing.
What are you supposed to say? What are those key points that you would say to leave a lasting impression besides my name is and I've done this job? What matters?
Well, I always like to remind our executive director when I get in he knows me, but hi, I'm Sheryl Bender. I'm in human resources, and I have been recruiting like crazy, getting the best people in here and taking care of the employees we have. And this is a great organization. I'm pleased to work here.
So you've got the job.
Yeah, and leave the drama out of it, because I think so many people pitch themselves with their drama story,
right?
And try and get them on the feel bad for me and woe is me.
That doesn't help.
What are you going to bring to the company? That's
exactly.
how they
An employer always wants to know, what can you do for us? What can you do to help us get to our bottom line? And if you can answer that question, then you're the one that's going to get the job.
Speaking of getting the job, stay tuned. We'll be right back with more interview tips, what to go, where to go, and what to wear. Stay tuned.